I'm rolling.
I wish to thank you all for allowing me to have this opportunity to speak to you today about Freemasonry. Let me start by giving you a brief history of our craft. I will then attempt to explain to you who we are not, and what we are all about. Hopefully, I will dispel a few myths along the way. The actual moment in time that Freemasonry began is lost to history. There are some historians who trace it back to the Assembly of Masons in York, England in 926, others to the Roman times, and still even others to King Solomon's temple. We do know that it started evolving into its present form at the close of the cathedral building period in the 1600s. The operative Freemason had for centuries established guilds or lodges that allowed non-Masons such as nobles, clergymen, scholars, or prominent men to join. These operative Masons had knowledge in the arts and sciences of the buildings and stone cutting that they passed on to new apprentices. It was therefore necessary that these new apprentices go through an initiation process and possibly take an oath that they would never reveal the secrets that they were to be taught to anyone other than an operative Mason. They were taught how to recognize another craftsman by signs, words, or grips. By this knowledge, they could set their own wages and negotiate their own contracts. Freemasons were allowed to travel and were not considered serfs or tied to any estate or feudal lord. The process of admitting non-operative Masons accelerated as the building boom in churches or cathedrals slowed. As the number of speculative Masons increased, the rituals and lessons of the operative Mason were absorbed into the speculative Masonic fraternity. There have been literally hundreds, if not thousands, of books written about Freemasonry over the past 4 centuries. Some in support of, others against the fraternity. Freemasonry has the illusion of being veiled in secrecy, of something sinister being conducted behind closed doors, with rituals and oaths, secret passwords and grips and handshakes. Some would think that if the fraternity would go to this much trouble and have all these secrets, and they must be up to something. Surely a conspiracy of some kind is taking place. For almost 400 years since the foundation of the First Grand Lodge of England, the fraternity has been viewed with suspicion from various parties, whether it be individuals, governments, or religious bodies. It is human nature to be suspicious of something you don't understand and that has a veil of secrecy around it. During these 400 years, there have been numerous charges from these same groups that the fraternity is trying to take over the world, that we are a religion, devil worshippers, or we are a cult. At one time, for those of you who are familiar with American history, there was even an anti-Masonic party in this country. During this time, for the most part, the fraternity has chosen to remain silent and not to indulge in public arguments or defend its teachings, believing that the misinformed would only deny their own ignorance and fabricate new myths. Through these past centuries, Masons have been persecuted, imprisoned.
We can pick up with through these past few centuries.
In past centuries, Masons have been persecuted, imprisoned, tortured, and put to death. Under the Nazi regime, estimates of between 80,000 to 200,000 Masons were sent to death camps and graded as political prisoners. They wore an inverted red triangle on their clothing to distinguish them as such. Those surviving wore forget-me-nots, a small flower, as a sign that they were still Masons. Let me now address who Masons are not. We are not a secret society. Most of us wear Masonic rings, lapel pins, have Masonic license plates or emblems on our cars. Masonic lodges are well marked in most communities with signs and buildings. We publicize our meeting dates and events in the local newspapers and on the internet. And speaking of the internet, we live in the information age. You can go on the internet and find out 90% or more of what goes on inside a Masonic lodge. We do have certain knowledge whereby we can know another Mason. If we are to travel to a different city, state, or foreign land, there are questions that will be asked and answers given before we are admitted into their lodge, or even to enter into conversation about the fraternity. We are not a religion. We offer no plan of salvation. We do not convert anyone. We have no theology or religious doctrine. We do not discuss politics or religion in the lodge. We open and close all our meetings with a prayer. This September 26th will mark 41 years that I have been a member of this fraternity. I am an active member of First Baptist Church in Decatur.
Sir.
This September 26th will mark 41 years that I have been a member of the fraternity. I am an active member of First Baptist Church in Decatur. The fraternity in no way detracts from my faith and my commitment to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. If anything, it has been strengthened by my association with good men of good character. Let me add that my father was a Mason, as was my grandfather. Needless to say, these two men have had a very large impact on my life. We are not trying to take over the world. If you would walk into a typical Masonic lodge and look at the men present, they would all tell you that they would have difficulty in taking control of their own houses. If the fraternity was intent on taking over this country, then they had the perfect opportunity at the close of the Revolutionary War. George Washington, a Mason and past master of his own lodge, resigned his commission and returned to his home at Mount Vernon when he could have been king. King George III of England, when hearing what Washington had done, called him the greatest man in the world. A large number of men who signed the Declaration of Independence as well as the Constitution were Masons. Most of George Washington's top officers were Masons. I believe 13 U.S. presidents have been Masons. The Masonic fraternity has been on this continent since colonial days, before the United States was formed. It has been in this land when it was a territory, before Alabama was a state. The oldest lodge in the state of Alabama is Hellion Lodge No. 1 in Huntsville, Alabama, which was chartered by the Grand Lodge of Kentucky in 1811. The Grand Lodge of Alabama was chartered in 1821, and your local lodge, Rising Sun Lodge No. 29, was chartered in 1827. With having been here so long, and having had members with so much influence at the local, state, and national levels, don't you think that if the goal of the fraternity was to take over anything, that it would have already happened? As Masons, we are taught to be good citizens, to obey the law of the land, and support the government of the country in which we live. Then who are we? We are 1.4 million men throughout these United States in 51 Grand Lodge jurisdictions, which includes the District of Columbia. There are currently approximately 28,000 members of the fraternity in Alabama. The Masonic fraternity, along with its appendant bodies, donates approximately $2 million a day to various charities. Some of the appendant bodies of Freemasonry you may be familiar with are the ancient Arabic order nobles of the Mystic Shrine, better known as the Shriners, the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, the York Rite of Freemasonry, the Grotto of North America, the Order of the Eastern Star, Demolay for young men, Job's Daughters, and Rainbow Girls for young women. We are a group of men who believe that the internal and not the external qualities of men are what we are to cherish. That all men in the lodge are equal, regardless of their station in life or the size of their personal wealth or lack thereof. That we are to aid, support, and protect one another and come to the aid of the distressed, the widow, and the orphans of Brother Masons. To believe in God, honor Him as the creator and giver of all life, to hold Him in veneration, and acknowledge Him and give Him thanks for all our achievements. To go to Him in prayer and seek His guidance in all things of this world and the next, as each of our individual beliefs dictate. We are a group of men who believe in the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man, who were taught to be tolerant of others' religious beliefs and to be truthful, open, and honest in our dealings with others. Freemasonry strives to make good men better. We are your neighbors, friends, fathers, grandfathers, and uncles.
Hold it, John.
We are your neighbors, friends, fathers, grandfathers, and uncles. During the Age of Enlightenment, Freemason lodges provided a place, a forum, to discuss the new ideals of brotherhood, equality, of rights of the individual, personal and religious freedom, and to be tolerant, again, of others' beliefs. This at a time when everyone had a social or caste system. These ideals were termed radical, and those that promoted them as extremely liberal, or in the case of the American colonies, revolutionaries. These ideals found their way into our Constitution and Bill of Rights. We as a fraternity are no longer considered liberal or these ideals radical, but now we are looked upon as conservative. At this time in our nation's history, when we see all the crime, violence, and moral decay, our core values and religious beliefs being attacked, would you not agree that we need more organizations that promote honor, honesty, integrity, to obey the golden rule, to do unto others as you wish they would do unto you? To be a Mason, you must ask. No Mason is permitted to ask another person to join the fraternity. You must be 21 years of age, and you must express a belief in God. We do not accept an atheist. I again thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today about a subject that is near and dear to my heart, because I am extremely proud of our Masonic heritage. Thank you.